President Uhuru Kenyatta touched on the Big Four agenda and why they are important. One of them is affordable housing. Uhuru says his administration has, over the last 12 months, established appropriate laws and policies that would provide a platform to transform the housing sector. Now, the Central Organization of Trade Unions, that is COTU, has poked holes in the government's National Housing Development Fund, opposing deduction from employees' salaries before the necessary regulations and structures are in place. Secretary General, that is Francis Atwoli, says the fund meant for building low-cost houses has the makings of a scam, and it is not clear what role employers and workers would play in the management of the fund. Now, let's speak to COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli, speaking to us from the Bomas of Kenya. And thank you so much for talking to us here on KTN News Center. You've termed this project as a scam in making. Why?
Thank you very much, sister. Why we are saying so, sometimes in July we had a meeting at State House convened by the President and presided over by the President. The permanent secretary in charge of this particular fund from the Housing Ministry promised to reconstitute a board to oversee the implementation of deductions or subscriptions to this fund. But up to date, as I'm talking to you, this PS has never convened. He once convened a meeting which was not corrected, and the Federation of Kenya Employers was not in attendance, or those people who are concerned, or the players or social partners were not in attendance. So he promised to call a second meeting, of which he didn't, because we wanted to work out on a well-reconstituted tripartite board to oversee the subscriptions and the deductions, and also to have a legislation to protect these funds. As you are aware, in Kenya, any money that is not legally protected is not useful, cannot reach the targeted areas. We are supporting the issue of housing because it affects millions and millions of workers. It is close to us. Out of the 4 items on the agenda of President's legacy, housing and manufacturing is close to us, because in the manufacturing industry will create more employment, and in housing will be in a position to shelter the lowly paid workers. But if this thing is not properly constituted, it's not legally done, we have no regulations in place, we don't know how they will be appointing the CEO in charge, and which banks will be saving this money will have to end into some people's pockets. Why do I say so? Look, our terms of office expired or ended in July at the NSSF. From July to date, the government has refused to gazette us. I, from the Central Organization of Trade Unions, and Jacqueline Mugo from the Federation of Kenya Employers, because some people within the government, they are eyeing 260 billion workers' money, of which we have protected over the years. And we don't want the NSSF to go NHIF way. We don't want a new housing fund to go NHIF way. That is why we are assisting His Excellency the President. We are assisting the government by demanding some rules in place. Rules of the game must be put in place. This fund must be manned by the people who are paying subscription, and these are workers and employers facilitating. If they don't do that, we will move to court to stop that, to annul that, and no worker will remit a penny to this. And when I met His Excellency the President yesterday, I thanked him for his speech, or yesterday's speech, where he said employers and trade unions have given support to this. But I told him there are people in his own kitchen, in his own house, who are not serious about this particular fund. And he said, oh, he will reconvene a meeting for us to look at that. But that was casual. We are saying if there will be no meeting to look into this issue of workers, and you know, initially it was to be 0.5, and then the government went ahead and gazetted 1.5. This is a lot of money. Some of workers, this is what they earn, and if it is to be deducted from workers, it must be properly looked after. And 2, we want to see how the model, the ways, how the beneficiaries will be qualifying for these houses. We don't want, and who will be the contractors. We don't want to see something that we saw some years back at NSSF, which is still under investigation. One contractor being given 5 projects because he was a well-connected contractor, and those people who are involved were getting kickbacks.
All right,
these are the things we are saying. We don't want to go that route.
All right, you're talking about, you're questioning the governance structure of the fund, and also your major concern is in terms of, involvement of stakeholders, and you're also talking about moving to court. Don't you think it's too late? Because it's like the train has already left the station, because recently we saw the Cabinet Secretary, C.S. Macharia, of course, talking about, a developer, a contractor has already been appointed.
If they are appointed without putting those regulations in place and reconstituting a board to supervise the fund, I can assure you they will go nowhere. Because if we go to court, we will be able to get court orders. There is nobody who can take away your money if you don't know where the money is going, or if you are not part and parcel of facilitating the same to the targeted areas. Kenyans are known, 99%, if not 100%, Kenyans in authorities are thieves. And nobody would allow something happening like that openly wide we are seeing. I've been complaining years throughout. It is me who was talking about corruption. I want to support His Excellency the President and the 2 young men, Kinoti and Haji, for the good job they are doing. But we need to support them, and we need to support this initiative of the President to root out thieves amongst us. And we are aware they are still there in thousands and thousands, and some are still eyeing NSSF money. How blind will we be? Because workers will not allow that. Shop stewards will be at our necks. Branch secretaries of our unions will be our necks. If we just accept without rules being put in place, without laws in place to govern, and without that fund being independent from housing ministry, then that money will go into pits. And this is why we have got to stand firm as workers' representatives and say, no, we met a board, the court's board met, and it instructed me that if we have not met by January, the first week of January, we are moving to court to annul this. Whether they have appointed contractors, they will look for money elsewhere. But workers are not prepared to part away, even with a single cent. That one I can promise you for free.
All right, we'll see how that plays out at the end of the day. That is COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli talking to us about that ambitious project of the government, the housing plan.